Hello, welcome to day 185, 365 days towards racial change. Happy 4th of July 2019. We're here talking about black issues and how we navigate the American landscape, especially in light of, Independence Day, what that means. Hopefully you've been able to reflect now a little bit on what Independence Day is in America, for who, what it means, who really benefits uh, from these pledges of allegiances and uh, loyalties, how this nation was created, what's written in this nation's founding documents uh, by its authors, its founding fathers, you know, who's included, who's excluded. This is good day to reflect on some of that. I know I have. On that note, I'm concerned about the black mind in America, the white mind as well. They're two sides of the same coin, the geist, the mind in America. For the black mind, is it's still trapped, enslaved, mentally at a disadvantage in America? Does it still see, its only way of success as aligning itself with white power? Conversely, the other side, the same coin, the white mind, that expectation of privilege, ease of movement in the American system and internationally, globally. Listen, you'll hear me say it. I've started to say this a little more often. It's interesting how the message continues to refine and evolve. But America is it's created by European whites. It's created for whites, and it's administered by whites. So other groups are going to find themselves, coming within that umbrella and rarely being successful outside of that system. We're finding as we look globally, it's even tough to get outside of it internationally. You can uh, if you find yourself on the wrong side, especially economically, of that equation, you are sanctioned and pressured by this entity on the earth to conform. And then after you conform, it's to produce and serve that system. I think that's what we see with a lot of nations we have conflict with. You know, I'm not claiming any allegiance to them, but I would venture, if I had the time, manpower, and whatnot, to really pick apart and dissect the argument. I mean, what's really going on? You know, I know what's on CNN. There's sanctions, and there's nuclear bombs, and there's terrorists, and tariffs, and all these great big terms that the public mindlessly goes after. But who are the players? It's only a handful of people manipulating masses, controlling the media, and all this. What's going on? So, all that to say, like, you know, it's too bad I don't have the means to get at some truth here. Maybe it's all truth, but see, I don't know because I've been exposed to some interesting resources since I started this project. My second big concern is for financial literacy, especially among black folks. How do we talk? What are we getting at? Where are we going financially? That's the foundational argument. That this country is built, There are law books and there are documents that says how the country runs and how the game is played. You know, after that comes tools of the game, the elements. Like you're going to play Monopoly, you need a piece, you need your hat, you need your dog, car, wheelbarrow. I think they put there's other pieces. I'm old school. Uh, and then you need, dice, a time element in there, and you need money, you know, resources to acquire, trade, and play the game. That's most. We can talk about what color the person is on the other side of the board, how they have their community set up, whatnot, all these other rules, but those are the basics. I'm finding in my life and in the lives of black folks, we don't talk about this fundamental piece of the American game. We're not educating. I'm just talking my experience. If it's different in your home, God bless you. Please start a video log, a blog, or something to tell black homes how to have financial discussions, because it didn't happen in my home. I've been on the earth decades, and I'm kind of going back home again, see if I can have now a financial discussion with some elders, uh, my caretakers, mothers, and interested parties. You gotta have these. White folks are having them. Every white person, like my white mentors, had this education, early teens, preteens, these discussions, because it's a life. Life. It's life. A healthy life. There's a circular dimension to it. But you take away any aspect, relationships, God, atheist or not, all you take away any aspect, and suddenly you get these flat sections on what's supposed to be nice and healthy and round. You excise the financial conversation. You're leaving your children and generations after that wide open to some real pain and hurt, and people angry and scratching their head why they're not competing in the system. And when they see everybody seems to be competing at will, well, most other people, especially white, have this conversation, already have this locked in at an early age. Black people just know how to spend money and whatnot. We got to get away from that. All right, enough of my grandstanding. You hear that every day to some form or degree. I'm inspired by a man named Dr.Claud Anderson. Get these books, please, and get this one if you only get one. But he's got plenty. I only got 3. Blah blah blah. A Black History Reader: 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. We reference these books consistently. A lot of great resources, and he covers everything uh, important. And where there may be gaps, I'll chime in with some of my thoughts. Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice, and Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, Powernomics. Remember August 10th, he's got this Heritage Festival celebration. I've got to put my thoughts together on how to participate in that myself. It's a good idea. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com. Behind me, you'll see the hashtag #US2 symbol. They're on Facebook, black women supporting one another in their voice. Gotta, keep black women lifted up and encouraged as well. support it. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF. And if you can't find your flavor, your voice here on the web, maybe you stumbled onto this video to see who does a whole year worth of stuff, that you stumbled onto this, and you can't find your flavor. You were just what was you just channel surfing, so you were web surfing and YouTube surfing, and you said, "Man, I can't find my flavor." Well, out of all the billions of sites out there, you still can't find your flavor. Do what I did. Start your own. Grassroots. You're the root. Excuse me, just getting over cold. And finally, we look at Uncle Tom's Cabin. We're going through a series today. We got into chapter 19. It was a real dense chapter, so we broke it up. Part 3, we broke it up into 4 parts. I got to look at my schedule to see how we're doing as far as finishing this by the end of the year. I think we're good as long as we stay on it and stay at it. Okay, on that note, um, Uncle Tom's Cabin is one of our resources. We just took a little break. It's the holidays. Everybody's messed around. But interestingly enough, in my area, it's raining. Where I grew up, it usually rained on the 4th of July. Very interesting. You can count on having some precipitation, or at least the incredible threat on 4th of July every year where I'm from. All right. Um, Chapter 19, Part 3, Ophelia's experience. She's still debating, going through some philosophical issues with her cousin, St. Clare, the owner of the plantation. And I want to just take a step back and give a shout out to Harriet Beecher Stowe, because I think she's being intentional here. Because St. Clare, the character, these are fictional people that she's made up. The St. Clair character is speaking so authoritatively, and he's got it all together, and it's a great argument. But whose argument is it really? Who's really speaking? Well, it's obviously Harriet Beecher Stowe. This is her work. But there's some genius here, because in the mid 1800s, who's going to listen to a white woman, even a white woman, with these heavy philosophical blows? You know, about an institution that's coming under scrutiny and is about to divide the nation into a civil war. you know. So she's using St. Clair to uh, reach, that these whatever white male audience out there that's receptive and hearing this. So I believe she's very intentional. She could have used Ophelia's voice and Ophelia's constant reaction to the overt slave institution in the South. Remember, it's concealed in the North, racism and things like that, very openly practiced in the South. And so I think she's using St. Clair in that way. Now, back to the story. He's still going on. St. Clair's still talking about his relationship with Alfred. And I want to give you a quote. They touch on religion, right? Very appropriate. In any conversation, at least in my experience, where you live, how did you grow up? What were your parents? Your siblings? What kind of work do you do? Do you have a relationship with God? What's all that about? There's a resume I put people through. I think everybody, we're feeling each other out. We're getting to know each other. Religion is not exempt, and in his um, commentary about his relationship with his brother Alfred, he says, "Look, about religion, because with this slave institution, you gotta justify being a man or woman of God, yet beating and raping these black humans and enslaving them, coercing them to work without pay and all that. But here's what St. Clare says, and I think he's reflecting the mind. Remember, you got to dehumanize. See, if these were human people, equals, and things like that, you can't really treat them that way. You know, you're a criminal. That's war crimes, crimes against humanity. But see, if you can dehumanize the black folks, then you can justify this behavior. St. Clare's father, he says, look, black folks are just some kind of link between our farm animals and us white folks. They're that missing link, you know. They're animals approaching human with black skin, you know. Just dehumanize. You got to dehumanize to justify branding, castration, lynching, and all this stuff. About religion, he says, look, the fact is that a mind stupefied and animalized by every bad influence from the hour of birth, spending the whole of every weekday in unreflecting toil, cannot be done much with by a few hours on Sunday. He says, you know, we've injected religion um, into the calculus of the slave institution, but it's a superfluous activity. It's just as mindless. It's a control, but it's just as mindless as them hoeing in the field. You know, that's what he says about religion in relation to all this. Story goes on. He says, "Look, St. Clare and I had to diverge. We had to. I think I mentioned this yesterday too. But you know, it really came to a head when slaves would come and they'd have dirt or rocks in the bottom of their sacks to they're trying to get the scale to agree with whatever quota their expectations were for that day, and that kind of went along with the harvest times and things like that. They had to have so much cotton per day, and so someone would cheat, and I mean, shit, I wouldn't be trying to do that either. Give me a boulder, we'll put in there with one little cotton. I don't care, trying to do all this crazy work for you, enriching you. So that they were cheating, the slaves were cheating at the scale. Now, St. Clare couldn't bring himself to punish them. He probably scolded them, gave them a strong reprimand. The slave probably, bowed their head and feigned humility, but they were glad that at least that day was easier. They just had to stand out in the sun and look busy. Alfred's not that type. Alfred's going to call his the slave master, apply some stripes, get this individual's mind right. So there's a full sack of cotton, no dirt or rocks in it to try to beat the scale. Um, and it just became too much for both these guys. They're on the goal is the same, but their ideologies are just too different. Alfred, the aristocrat, the logical thinker, wants the return on investment. These are farm implements, animals. These slaves, they're on the earth to produce for him. St. Clare has more heart. Yeah, he wants the quota and all this stuff, but he's not going to be hard on the slaves. Um, St. Clare, look, the slaves are cash flow, and he's happy with cash flow. They're not running away. There's not a whole lot of drama. Hey, that's what more do you want, right? See, the St. Clare recognizes the humanity. He got that from his mother. His mother instilled in him the humanity of all people and creatures. I personally see soul and spirit in a lot of animals, insects. Even I've seen insects at play, and insects um, protecting their young. A lot of traits. Oh, they're just bugs, and those are just animals. I could never work in a slaughterhouse. I know I love to eat, but I couldn't. It would take me a long time to get over cutting heads off chickens. I gotta admit, it's not in me. So St. Clair has, from Alfred's point of view, St. Clair would be infected with humanity. His mother got to St. Clair, but Alfred's like, Mom didn't get to me in that way. I took Dad's route. Let's increase. Let's fire it up. Let's take it to the max. Who cares if they're dying, diseased, neglected, abandoned? you know, I want the payday. That's what I'm here for. What else is there but exploitation? And that's the pure European thought. Before I started today's video, I was like, it's amazing. You look around the earth and you think about colonizations and things like that. How these Europeans and just that whole northern bloc. Uh, I won't. I'm not an anthropology major, but we'll just keep it to uh, east of the. I'm sorry, west of the. I think there's a certain mountain chain that really is a real dividing line between when you find like those Chinese, the Soviets in there versus Eastern Europe and Europe proper. I'm going to have to look at a map to see, make sure I know what I'm talking about. But Europeans, come out and go and conquer, colonize. These people are just chilling. They're growing. Yeah, there may be some issues. There's war amongst peoples. That's just something, a facet of mankind. But the Europeans just have a different value. It's rape the land. It's maximize um, exploitation. It's slavery. It's ramp it up and really dehumanize and take and take and take. You know, bring that system under our control and see how it can serve us, so that a minority can just write papers and give orders. You know, that's going to impact life or death on these people. They're just thinking about that. You think about New Zealand, Australia, Africa, all the Americas, or just Hawaii, Pacific Rim, just they had just, I would say, just good lives, and these Europeans come on with their guns and just take over. It's not right. There's got to be some comeuppance, some balancing of that equation eventually. It's got to be. I hope I get to see some aspects of it in my lifetime. St. Clair loves his cash flow and his comfort. His high maintenance wife, narcissistic, sickly, is quiet. She can lay around and moan about being sick. He's got a beautiful daughter she's cared for. He can even support bringing a cousin down to help with the household. Um, you know, he's grieved by the institution, uh, but he throws his hands. He ain't doing a whole lot to make a whole lot of change. I mean, me. Well, Jesus told the guys, sell all you have and follow me. It's like, well, let me think twice about that. you know, you're going to really put some skin in the game. That's not like the choice isn't about what to put in, or the choice is what's your level of willingness to bring about change. You know, smoke a cigar, read the paper, lay back on your couch, dream of change. Are you really going to get out there and put some skin in the game? That's a challenge for me, just like everybody else. Uh, in this, we'll wrap up with a few more illustrations. They've gone on. I think you get the gist of the conversation between Ophelia and St. Clare. T-bell rings, ding, ding, ding. Another privilege. They're going to have tea. Marie is there, and she's half apologetic about Prue's murder. She doesn't call it murder. She says, look, Prue was a bad slave and all this, and she deserved it. The victim blaming. We're different today, but there was a time when rape victims came forward. Well, they get the third degree, and they have to prove all this stuff, and they have to produce evidence and stuff like that. The victim was blamed for the rape. That's Marie's attitude towards Prue's murder. That Prue wouldn't stop drinking and all this stuff. It's totally dismissing Prue's abuse, the things she endured, and Marie compares her life as being. She contrasts her life as being harder than Prue's. Because Marie's a pure narcissist, and she's always, in her mind, she's always a level up on abuse, on being abused, and a suffering life and stuff like that. She would never fathom step in the same room with what Prue went through in Prue's life. They use Prue like a bitch in a puppy mill, you know. Damn. Then beat her to death because Prue is trying to get this crying of her last child starving to death. That's a slow death. Slow, long, lingering death. The stomach just calling, just for something, sugar water even, and it just tore Prue up. Marie compares herself with that kind of suffering. And slaves are bad. St. Clare interjects, so because he's codependent. Look up that word, and whatnot. He's codependent. He gives a story about this guy, Scipio. And Scipio was a slave from Africa, ran away a lot. If you watch Roots and you watch Kunta Kinte, running away and stuff like that, that's Scipio's story. Scipio eventually got trapped and shot. He was Alfred's slave, but Alfred was going to just kill him outright. St. Clare intercedes. St. Clare took Scipio, put Scipio in his bed, in St. Clare's bed. So he's in the opulence, soft, clean, and he's ministering to Scipio, which gets Scipio back to health, and even gives Scipio freedom papers, emancipation. Scipio tears the papers up. He's like, no, I'm staying with you. I get it. He's like, the kindness has won him over to accept being a slave. We can go into all kinds of conversations about that, but we're running out of time here. He's he's like, no, I'm staying with you. So Scipio he takes care of some vacation property and whatnot. During a cholera outbreak, Scipio falls sick and is ministered to health again by St. Clare, but then St. Clare gets sick. Scipio gets sick again and dies and all that. So, excuse me. So St. Clare's just illustrating, look, maybe kindness and recognizing some humanity in these people is a key to getting some cooperation and whatnot. Eva hears this story and she's bewildered and crushed, and she just does not take humanity's um, you know abuse towards one another well. This is just a little young girl. Look up Shirley Temple, and that's the Eva character. She just does not like that. She's so pure, and she's mature beyond her age. So when she hears these stories, Prue's death, Scipio's death, you know, these she's hearing these slaves, these black people are dying some of the most horrible. They don't get they don't go off in old age and retire off somewhere. We haven't seen that in the book yet. You know, they're running for their lives, working too hard, being murdered, uh, dying while trying to help their masters. You know, all this dramatized death. She takes that kind of stuff in because her level of empathy is the ultimate. I'm out of time. We're going to look at part four. Switching gears. I'm anxious actually to get into chapter 20. Some interesting changes come about. I'm Tomlin's Nyback. Thank you for spending time with me again. Day 185 out of the way. 365 days towards racial change. I'll see you tomorrow.